on the table. I will second that motion. Councilwoman Gallego.
Mayor, I'd like to offer a substitute motion. I've been thinking about this and saying what amount of compensation could we offer that would make me feel good about talking to someone who just lost their family or their spouse in an accident. And the answer I come up with is there is no amount that would make me feel good about it. We cannot afford to pay people what would make that right. It's a very difficult time, and so we have to think about what is the responsible thing to pay. But I understand there's differences of opinion here, and I want to give my colleagues who feel differently the opportunity to vote in favor of this. I think we've all made commitments related to pension spiking, but people have also made commitments not to change compensation, lower compensation for police officers. So I will give them the opportunity to move forward on that. My motion is that we restore concessions of 1.6% in the first year, a 2% wage increase as recommended by the fact finder, continue merit and productivity enhancement pay, deferred comp at 0.37%. The uniform allowance would stay at $1,150 and be eligible for pension. Vacation and sick pay would be pension eligible. We would only address pension spiking for employees hired after July 1st of 2014, and we would impose all tentative agreements agreed by the city and PLEA.
I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I think the intent of the second is what was offered by Phoenix Law Enforcement Association in the fact-finding process. All right, we'll take testimony.
A friendly motion too, if I could. I'll support that, and that does go against some of my principles. So I just want you to know that because I know what you're doing, and I'll make sure that I want to see if we get the votes across to do that. So if you could also, we make the cuts. Look at the first $16 million that we've already identified in cuts, the travel budget, the lobbying, the PR budget. We look at those 104 vacant positions and the sale of vacant lands. They might get what they want out of this thing today.
I think we owe the public, the people who have stuck through this meeting, a clean vote on the proposal, so I don't accept the friendly amendment.
Let's make it happen.
All right, so, and I guess I would request that we have comments on both the substitute motion as well as the underlying motion, depending on how it goes. So this is your opportunity to do so. Comments by members of the council. Vice Mayor?
Can we get that written down? That, I mean, all right, I'll tell you, you guys are laughing, and you're absolutely right to laugh. And I may be supportive, so that may be a good thing as far as you're concerned, but I am sort of amused by the fact that we're sort of throwing out contract language without it being even written down for us to even see it.
It's the fact finder stuff, right?
Yeah, the fact finder's report. So
Let's
as written in the PLEA final position on page 4 of the Unit 4 PLEA packet.
Okay. Let's make it happen.
Okay, so we have comments by members of this council. Councilman Nowakowski?
I have some comments. A lot of people have been hearing negotiation, fact-finding, favored nation, Me Too clause. For those individuals watching television, not understanding what's going on, can you explain to people what impasse means?
That's for the city manager?
Or whoever.
Please, city manager.
I'll ask our Labor Relations Administrator, Cindy Bezery, to give you the answer.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Nowakowski, as it relates to our meet and confer ordinance, impasse is reached when the parties cannot agree on any final resolutions or any final tentative agreements. At that point, both parties then file a letter with the Phoenix Employee Relations Board that we've reached impasse, and it eventually goes mediation and then to a fact finder.
And then can you explain the fact finder?
Fact finder is a third-party independent arbitrator who is selected from the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service Board to listen to the impasse issues between the parties and any other information that they should choose to present to reach a recommendation for the city manager, mayor, and council.
And can you explain the favor nation or the term Me Too clause?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Nowakowski. It has been a consistent practice here in the city of Phoenix that all employee groups would have the same economic package, either plus or minus. often called favored nation, equitable treatment, or Me Too.
Now we have 5 different unions or units. Have all 5 been through impasse?
Yes, sir.
Have all 5 been a part of the fact-finding?
Yes, sir.
And have all 5 been favorable or non-favorable to the fact finder?
We had different decisions among the units. Some were, the majority of the decisions were with the city. The difference, in my opinion, after reading the fact finder's point here in the plea, was that the fact finder recommended an increase in revenue to offset and to wait for the collection of that increase in revenue, and that's why he pushed the increases to the second year of the agreement.
Yeah. And basically, when that, it's been said many times, respect the process, that would be the fact-finding process probably, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that, I was going to ask to actually send it back to our city manager and our negotiation team to really sit down with PLEA and work it out, because basically we're not experts here. You all are the experts. The union leaders are the experts. But seeing that there's this secondary motion, it looks like I would probably go with the secondary.
Good job. Looks like we got the votes.
Okay, so we now have the motion, we have a substitute motion, comments, additional comments on that. So for the record, I'll be not supporting the substitute motion. I will be supporting Councilwoman Williams' motion. There's been obviously a lot of hours and hours of testimony, very powerful and passionate testimony. These are incredible times that we live in. Throughout my 12 years of service on the City Council and now as mayor, I have been a rock-solid supporter of the meet and confer process, the labor negotiation process. I have seen that, especially over the last few years, come under incredible attack with the suggestion that our city manager is somehow in cahoots with our labor groups, and that it ends up being unfair to the people of this city. I really believe that our meet and confer I think it's an unfair characterization. I really believe that our meet and confer process is the right process for the city of Phoenix. I have seen in my time, both on council and as mayor, when they did a market adjustment in 2008, I certainly was supportive of that. By members of this council, that has come under incredible scrutiny with the suggestion that has led to significant economic issues of the city today. It was the right decision to do at that time. A strong case was made. In 2012, I was supportive of this contract with Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. I don't think it's an unfair characterization to say that if you come to our meetings regularly, I as mayor come under every meeting attack by members of this council suggesting that I have been inappropriately working with the labor unions to give pay increases that we kept in place, longevity awards. I think it's not a mischaracterization to say that I personally have come under just significant criticism by members of the council regarding the decision to support PLEA and the decisions that were made at the bargaining table just 2 years ago. And so, like Councilman Williams, I'm proud of my track record of partnership and support for labor in the city of Phoenix, our city employees, including and especially members of law enforcement. So I don't believe that the labor management relations are a sham or some of the other arguments that were made here today. These are tough times. We've got some tough decisions to make as a city, but I don't believe that the system, our meet and confer system, is a broken or a system that needs to be fixed. Because the alternative is then to just eliminate the city manager from the process and directly negotiate with the mayor and council. I don't think that would be a process that any of our employee organizations would would appreciate if we were to change the direction in that regard. Throughout this process, the recommendation has changed. There now is a recommendation for revenue on the table. It's going to be a very tough decision by members of this council about whether to increase the water. I'm sure it's going to come under significant criticism by members of this council and the public about whether that is the right decision to do. But it's what's going to be necessary in order to close our budget gap. The reality is that for mostly the labor management process has worked very well in the city. Certainly in the 2000s, it worked better when we had more revenue and we were able to decide how to spend that additional revenue. But that's simply not the case anymore. Revenue growth isn't as strong as we would like it to be. We are still feeling the effects of the recession. Increases in certain types of expenses, including employee expenses, are outpacing revenue growth. When we talk about the cost, employee costs, we're not just talking about base wages alone. Of course we have to include the cost of health care. Of course we have to include the cost of retirement security that every single, actually majority of this council, I think, believes in retirement security for our city employees. As was mentioned, those pension costs have doubled over the last 6 years. It's not an easy statistic, but it's statistics that we have to come to terms with, and we have to continue to support, because we do want to continue to support retirement security for our law enforcement officials. These are the same issues that cities across the country are dealing with. Some have chosen the layoff route. That's not the approach that the city of Phoenix has taken. This is a great city. We have great city employees. We have great public safety officials. There's a reason why 93% of the people who live in our city say that it is still a great place to live. We all have to balance our budget. The city council has an obligation to balance our budget, and unfortunately we are in a situation where we have to make tough choices to do so. I just want to say something about this equitable treatment, most favored nation clause, because it's come under a lot of discussion about whether we ought to go in a different direction than that for purposes of this round of labor management negotiations. I respectfully disagree with the approach that we should not abide by an equitable treatment with regard to our employee organizations. The reality is that when the city manager negotiates with our employee organizations, as a practical matter, we wouldn't get any agreement from organizations without an equitable treatment provision, and then we can decide as a council, as the other agreements come in, whether or not we want to change them. But otherwise, we simply wouldn't get agreement, and it's been a 40-year tradition of the city in this important labor management process that we go through every single year. So changing that and going in a different direction now, regardless of what's happened in the past relative to the fact finders, this council has always adopted an equitable treatment policy by this council. So times where it hasn't gone in one direction, we haven't punished anyone for that. Instead, our policy has been equitable treatment, and I do believe that is the appropriate policy here tonight. So I cannot support going in a different direction. So I do think the motion made by Councilwoman Williams, for all these reasons, is the appropriate decision here tonight. And so that's why I'm indicating I'll be voting no on the substitute and yes on Councilwoman Williams' motion. Vice Mayor.
I have a couple specific questions. So this proposal is not a cut for police? Yes or no?
Add.
Mayor,
No,
Vice Mayor Waring,
I just want to make sure.
which proposal are you saying is this?
The substitute motion.
The substitute motion, as I understand it, would be a 0% cut to police the first year and the 3.6 total increase in the second year, which was the fact finder's recommendation.
Thank you for that. So the other contracts have been voted on. We've talked about this before. I mean, what do we expect? I mean, are they signed? They just got voted on a couple hours ago in some cases, last week in the other. So what happens then? Because of the equitable treatment, we can expect that this isn't the end of the story?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, I'll ask the city attorney to talk about that contract piece.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, what would happen then if the substitute motion should prevail and be adopted by council? At that point in time, the various units that have already reached an agreement, we would have to amend those agreements, and those would be presented back to this body for review and approval.
Okay. So this would change your budget picture, correct?
But Jim, may I add something there? They can ask for reconsideration as of today. You got till tomorrow on all of them to change that most favored nation or poison pill. You can do that today. Actually, by tomorrow morning.
No, please, if everyone had a chance to testify, it should be
Given
noted.
options.
It should be noted, I think in addition to the wage issues, I do think the hearing officer did indicate that this term pension spiking, that pension spiking would continue for existing employees. The changes would only go in effect for new employees.
Mayor, that is correct. The other part of the fact finder finding was that pension spiking provisions would apply only to officers hired after July 1st or after of this year. I apologize, Vice Mayor, your question to me was what?
Well, I'm wondering what's going to happen with the budget.
Oh, with the budget, thank you. Mayor, Vice Mayor, so there's $16.5 million of employee concessions assumed in the budget.
And this is 4.6 million of that, correct?
This is 4.6. The other aspects would be the remaining 11.9 million. So those numbers would need to be, we would go to attachments A and B, or I'm sorry, B and C in the manager's proposed budget, which was the list of services that we would come back to propose to the council.
Okay. Well, I took issue, I think the difference, Councilman DeCiccio and myself and other members of this council, we're actually willing to cut stuff that we think isn't as important as these folks who testified here tonight. And I think we've identified some of it for sure. I would say it gets you almost all the way to the 4.6 million. So I would hope that you would start there and we don't go back to the senior center scare tax and so forth. However, I am going to engage in some controversy because I would also say that what these folks do is more important than perhaps some reduced hours for some city services. So whatever you need to do to make the numbers work, I would certainly appreciate, and I think we'd all probably appreciate seeing those numbers as soon as possible, particularly you and I, since we're doing a budget hearing in my district on May 13th. You know, realistically, I've heard a lot of things about how we've always done things here at the City of Phoenix. If I wanted to do things the way they've always been done, I wouldn't have run for the office. It'd just be on automatic pilot. So this is uncharted territory. I understand. I've heard that a lot the last couple of weeks. I feel like I'm on the Star Trek Enterprise or something going off and seeing some undiscovered country with this, all this talk about we've never done this before. Well, we're going to see how this works. I think people thought that this was just going to pass tonight and the previous proposal, and it's not. And you guys should be proud of your leadership because I think, based on what I'm hearing up here, you're going to win. And I thought you deserved to win based on what I heard in the presentation. I thought Will and Joe did a great job, and she should be proud of that. You know, that's... I know we haven't always agreed. I'll let other council people speak for themselves about that, but realistically, I thought you made an excellent presentation of why you're different. I very inarticulately talked about this very subject about a month or so ago. So got myself in all kinds of hot water on Facebook and Google and all that stuff. But I thought you guys handled it extremely well, and you deserve what I think you're going to get.
Mayor?
I think Councilman Gates had some questions or comments,
Okay.
please.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so I'm going to get a handle on these numbers. So the 4.6 million that we're talking about, that's based upon level in the 4.6. Tell me exactly what the 4.6 million covers.
Sorry.
Or what it assumes.
Mayor, Councilman Gates, the 4.6 million is the value of the assumed 1.6% reduction in the first year of that agreement.
Okay. So then if that goes away, then obviously that's 4.6 million that goes away. Then the 0.9 in the second year is is worth how much?
Mayor, Councilman Gates, that number would be about $2.5 million.
Okay.
I'm giving general fund numbers here.
And then the fact finder recommendation is 3.6% raise in the second year? What is it?
Yes.
Is that right?
Mayor, Councilman, 3.6 in the second year, restoration of 1.6 plus an additional 2% in wage.
And what's the value of that?
It's likely about 10 million, just, it might be a little different, but or in the $10 million range.
Okay. So we have the 4.6 million in 14-15, and then if this proposal were to pass, 12.5 million in 15-16.
Actually, 10 million in 15-16.
Okay. You said 10 million is the cost of the 3.6% increase.
Correct.
Right? And then there's the 0.9 that you're figuring into your budget is another 0.9 decrease in 15-16.
I apologize, that is correct. Yes,
Okay.
it's the 10 million plus the 2.5.
Okay.
You're right, I got you.
Okay, so it's just, I just want to understand the numbers we're dealing with. So it's 12.5 million in 15-16, 4.6 million in 14-15. And then, if you were to, if those same numbers were to be applied to the other unions, what would the cost of that be?
So in the first year, if those numbers were applied to all unions, in the first year it would be 16.5 million. And in the second year, it would be, I'm doing math in public here, 9.3 million is the value of the 9/10ths. And then 3.6 would be about 36 million. In other words, it would be about 45 million additional costs for all employees to the general fund in the second year.
Okay. And I need to get an assessment from staff. Do we believe that that's where these current agreements that have been agreed to by the council, by a majority of the council, that we would have the obligation to basically match that for the other unions based upon what exists in the agreements now that have been approved?
Mayor, Councilman Gates, it would be my understanding, I'll have the city attorney correct me if I'm wrong, that absent specific council action to the contrary, that yes, that would be the assumption for all other contracts to then conform to this language under the favored nation, although the council could take specific action to the contrary, which has some risk to it.
That sums it up well. Can't do any better.
The substitute motion that's been presented allows pension spiking to what extent? Pension spiking to continue to what extent?
It includes, uniform allowance would be pensionable, vacation and sick would be pensionable. And I should clarify, I intend to vote no on this motion. But I feel like it's important that we get out there and give people the opportunity to follow their commitments and to stay where they are, say where they are on pension spiking, to say where they are
You're gonna vote
on
no?
police compensation, yes.
You're gaming these officers here today? We had 5 votes lined up here with your vote. I'm still voting yes. I'm voting yes on this.
Excellent.
I think it's-
Councilman Gates, go
Not
ahead.
gonna
Please, you have
game
more
these
questions?
guys, are we?
Those are
We
my
had 5
questions.
votes lined up.
I'm sorry, I really thought you guys had won. I apologize.
Okay, additional comments by members of this council before we vote?
Is this a game?
Mayor,
Councilman Valenzuela? Whoa.
yeah, thank you.
This doesn't happen here. This
It's
is how
fine.
dysfunctional
Councilman,
it
I
is
have
at
the
City
floor.
Hall right now. I gotta tell you, this better not be occurring what I'm thinking is occurring here. If there's a game going, I say we just vote on this thing. Let's get it up or down. Let's do it.
Councilman can have the floor.
Councilman Waring, Vice Mayor. May I have the floor, Vice Mayor?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
I-
Danny asked.
Vice Mayor? May I have the floor?
I think Dan,
Yeah,
Danny wanted to speak. Danny wanted to speak.
actually, the mayor called on me,
Yes, go ahead.
so it was so I appreciate it.
Sorry, I didn't see him.
So, you know, look, this is a tough, this is a tough vote. It's a tough situation. And some of my colleagues on the council may even tell you by my vote tonight that I am not supportive of our police officers, but that could not be further from the truth. From the very beginning, whether it's working on the COPS grant or securing other public safety grants, it could be working closely with your leadership on, you know, whether, you know, union release time, for an example, protecting pensions. It could be, you know, looking for opportunities for officers. You know, we have a crime safety initiative in District 5 that not only protects the neighborhoods with enhanced policing in a 4-mile radius of Grand Canyon University, but, you know, frankly, there are a lot of overtime opportunities for officers as well, and the list goes.
Councilman, go ahead.
Yeah. So, now, I do agree with Councilwoman Williams that the safest thing we can do for not only our community but our officers is to find an opportunity to hire more police officers. And when it comes down to it, I believe that is the #1 priority that we have here. In fact, that's something that I've worked and spoken with our PLEA leadership on, is ways to, you know, hire more police officers. This is the #1 priority. I think that I think everyone should agree. Everyone will agree with that. So, you know, look, our employees deserve better. Our residents deserve better. I never want to be in a situation like this again. I applaud our employees, all of our employees, for taking the cut. And I'm committed to figuring out a way that, again, to never find our way back here again. And I personally will begin by displaying that commitment by also matching the cut. I myself will be taking the 1.9% cut this year and the 0.6 next year to share in the sacrifice. But with that, I will not be supportive of the substitute motion. I am supportive of the original motion.
Mayor? All right, thank you very much. Councilman Pastor, did you have something?
Yeah, I have several questions. And I'm going back with Gates and the numbers. So 14, 15, it'd be 4.6.
So
Am I getting
I'm
this
speaking
correct?
all in general fund numbers here. So 14, 15, the value of a 0 to PLEA rather than a 1.6 is 4.6 million.
And then 12.5 or 13, 15, 16?
Fifteen, 16, okay, I'm sorry. 15, 16 is 12. Yes, 12.5 and 15, 16. Is the value, is the cost to the budget for that.
And if is it favorite nation, then that will come into play.
Mayor, Councilman Pastor, yes, the equitable treatment clause for the other unions would come into play with that motion.
Then, I think I have these numbers right, Gates, so you can help me with this, or the total will be 45 million.
So the total for 14, 15, for all units to get 0, all employees to get 0, I'm sorry, is 16.5 million. Plus the second year, if all employees got the 3.6%, that value to the budget would be 45 million.
And
So a
what are-
2-year total of about $60 million.
2 years, 60 million?
2-year total.
And then, what is our projections? in revenue?
Mayor, Councilman Pastor, are you speaking of the 15-16?
Well, 14, 15,
Okay,
15,
so
16.
14, 15, 16.5 million would mean that we would be going to reductions of services of 16.5 million to balance the budget, the way it is assumed now.
Okay,
So in other words, if we had 0 cuts to city employees, that's equivalent of 16.5 million cost to the budget that's not accounted for now, that we would have to either raise in revenue, additional revenue, or cut in service.
and then 15, 16.
For 15-16, we are currently looking at, and again, this is really a far look, so it will change, but we're currently looking at a deficit in the $15 to $40 million range if nothing else changes. So that would be additive. That 60 million would be additive to that range.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure this out I know pieces of it, and please bear with me. So attachment B and attachment C right here that's being proposed. These would be the ones that would be cut, 14, 15.
Mayor, Councilman Pastor, yes, that is in the manager's proposed budget. B and C are the list of items to cut to balance the budget should there not be employee concessions of 16.5 million or new revenues of 11 million. That's what the budget's based on, those two components.
And you're saying you're projecting new revenue of 11?
In the 14-15 budget, it assumes a new revenue of $11 million, yes.
So then if we get to 15, 16, there can be additional cuts to services? And would that be 45 million or 60 million?
Mayor, Councilman Pastor, if the 3.6 were across the board for all employees, that's about $60 million additive to what we currently estimate as a potential budget shortfall. So if the range before were 15 to 40 and you added 60, the range would then go to 75 to 100.
So, okay, that's for 15, 16.
For 15, 16.
Then we would be basically gutting all our services? That's what I'm hearing.
Just by way of comparison, the proposed service cuts this year were about almost $30 million. So you would double that to get to 60. So
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Mayor, can we call the question?
No,
With the-
well,
That are
whoa,
opportunity
wait,
to
I have to
speak.
have an opportunity to talk here, Mayor.
I believe everyone has had that opportunity.
No, I didn't. Not on this motion here. Promises made, promises kept. Making a motion is a promise, but it's also a point of
All right, so
order.
the question has
Robert
been,
rules,
the question has been called.
but
Is
I've
there a
got
second?
Point of order too.
Councilman
Robert
Williams.
rules, this is to the city attorney.
That's right.
Does the maker of a motion, can the maker of a motion vote against their own motion?
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, yes, they can vote as they choose.
Well,
All right, so we now have a call the question on the floor. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
What, to abstain?
Nay.
I didn't hear you,
This is a
Mayor.
call the question,
Oh,
to end debate.
I'm going to
Yeah,
vote
call-
no on that.
Okay, let's do a roll call. This is on the call for the question.
And this is how dysfunctional lack of leadership at the city council is. Now you just saw it, folks.
Roll call.
Explanation of my vote. What you saw here today was a lack
Wait,
of
we get a roll-
leadership, lack of
Councilman- Councilman.
direction. You know, Mayor, I have a right to talk. And you know
No,
what?
the question's been called. We have a vote on that, and then
Cutting
if
me
it's
down
unsuccessful, we'll let you have it.
constantly. And
Roll
I've
call.
got-
DCO,
No.
Gallego,
Yes.
Gates,
No.
Noakowski,
No.
Pastor,
No,
Valenzuela,
Yes.
Williams, Waring,
No. Let's not.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, I think the call for the question fails on a 5-4 vote. Councilman DeCiccio?
Thank you, Mayor. So, you saw how this was going to be shut down, and it didn't happen. What ends up happening, and I just want to, and I'm going to tell you, this is an incredibly frustrating experience, but welcome to the world of the City Council, Mayor. Now you know why the City Council, the City of Phoenix has one of the worst budget deficits ever and has the most amount of revenue. It's not a revenue problem. The City of Phoenix has over $46 million more this year than last year, and now you just saw the lack of leadership here, and you saw the lack of focus. This is why we have a problem. It's not about needing more money for the food tax. It's not. You could give us all the money in the world and you still have this. This is what the problem is. No one took the leadership position here to try to make it happen, except for maybe a couple of us to try to make this thing happen one way or the other. But you saw a game occurring. And you know what was the worst part of this thing? When you make a motion, that you're making a promise. You're making a second, you're making a promise. We're about to find out if these promises are broken and kept this quick within a matter of minutes. That's what we're about to see here today. So here's what I would like to see done. I'd like to see us pass this motion, get it through, direct city manager to go find those cuts. We've already identified $16 million in potential cuts. But you know what? We're going to have to make a decision whether or not we give up our travel and fine dining on the council, or we're going to support police officers. We're going to have to make decide whether or not this council and mayor is going to work and get our rear ends down to the state that's west, down to the state capitol ourselves and be able to do the lobbying ourselves. That's what you hired us to do. So we're about to find out whether or not these promises are going to be made and whether or not they're going to be kept, and we're going to find out pretty doggone quick here. What we do know, and I want to reiterate this, is that the job functions of police officers are different. The responsibilities of a police officer is different. Their responsibility is dealing with police powers where they arrest individuals and they are involved in situations where it's always negative. Now, we're always involved in nice little dinners and things like that. They don't deal with that world. They don't deal in the same world that we do. Their work schedule is different. Their training is different. Their engagement with the public, as I said, is completely different. We owe it to them to treat them the way that they need to be treated here. They don't need to be gamed. They don't need to be treated poorly. And we're about to find out what's happening. I'm incredibly disappointed, but I'm not surprised. This dysfunction is one of the worst I've ever seen. One of the worst I've ever seen. And I'm going to be voting yes on this. And, on the pension spiking thing, we don't agree on that. That's going to be handled in court anyway, so we don't agree. But that's okay. We don't agree with pension spike. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Vice Mayor, did you have additional comments?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I just have one small request going forward from this council. Please, I don't ever want to hear another mayor or city councilman make fun of the state legislature again.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We have no leg to stand on there. I've never seen anything like this, making a motion and then, particularly in a room full of people who obviously came down here very passionately. So again, I guess we'll see where the votes are. I think the idea was Councilman DeCiccio and I didn't mean what we were saying and so forth, and it turned out, surprise, we actually were. So I'm sorry that perhaps that's not the case with every person up here. So you're going to find out in a few minutes who your friends are. Again, I'm not looking for thanks. I'm not looking for help in campaigns. I'm not looking for anything. This, I think, is just better public policy than we were offering, and certainly couldn't be worse than the budget scenarios we've put out there the last, I guess now three cycles for me on this. So sorry if this is going to work out that way. I'm sorry I declared victory and put up the mission accomplished sign before I guess it actually happened. But based on 12 years of history of doing this, I've never seen anything like this, so I made an assumption that I thought was ironclad. So we're going to find out what happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Any additional comments, members of the council?
Mayor.
So, Councilman Nowakowski, please.
I've been on the council for 7 years, and this is sad. This is very, very sad. I've been on the council for 7 years. I've been to 8 funerals, 1 firefighter, 7 police officers. And it's sad that we're playing this political football with you all. What happened here is that there was a motion, and there was a secondary motion. What that does is it freezes everything, so that we couldn't make another motion to say, hey, take it back to the city manager, to our staff, to try to fix it and negotiate with the police union. That's where it should be fixed. It shouldn't be fixed here with us politicians. Let the experts fix this problem. Now you go back, and they should go back and try to fix this. And that's where it has to happen. So I'm sorry, I apologize, it's a sad day. And Phoenix, I didn't think it was broken, but it is broken with what just happened right here.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilman. Councilman Gates, please.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. I would agree with some of the comments made by Councilman Nowakowski. I think, you know, this shows to me clearly, this is actually proving why it was a good decision to vote for the continuance at the very beginning of this evening. There's more work that needs to be done, but I can't support this particular substitute amendment that has potentially 75, you know, could commit the city to over $75 million that we don't have in the budget now over the next 2 years. I just can't vote for that, and it's not a responsible thing to do. And I also, frankly, can't vote for a motion that will have us go backwards on pension spiking, which is something that is very important in the community. And I also can't support this motion when the PLEA has agreed to take the 3.2% raise, which I thought was a great move on their part. They agreed to take that off the table for the second year. So it's just not responsible, in my opinion. I respect where everyone else is coming from up here, but it's just not responsible, in my opinion, to vote for this. Instead, I would go more the direction of what Councilman Nowakowski has said, that we've got some more work to do. I proposed a little over $4 million in cuts that came off of the attachments B and C that Councilman Pastor were referring to earlier, but this number is it's just too big for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Gates. By the way, just as you indicated, if you decide to vote no on both, that's perfectly fine. In fact, we've had incident not that long ago in which we've had both motions and substitute motions not be successful, and then we're back at the table, so that is not unheard of. And so that, I don't think it was an inappropriate motion to present these issues, get them on the table, let people vote, and they can certainly vote them down if they want. That's an option that everyone has. All right, I'll now do a roll call vote. This is on the substitute motion. Roll call.
DeCiccio.
Yes.
Gallego. Gates.
No.
Nowakowski.
No.
Pastor.
This is a really difficult decision for me. It's very emotional too. Just knowing that more than 60 million from 14-16, and that we're going to gut all our programs, I'm voting no.
Valenzuela.
No.
Williams.
No.
Waring.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
No, so the motion fails on a 7-2 vote. Now we're at the original motion by Councilwoman Williams. Are there additional comments on the underlying motion? Councilman Nowakowski, please.
Now that we had a secondary motion voted on, it's gone. Can we create another secondary motion on top of this?
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, no, you cannot. Under the council rules, rule number 5, a motion can only be amended once, and then the original, and if that fails, then the original motion must be voted on. So that's in the council rules already. So no, you may not.
As was indicated earlier, we've had situations, not that in the distant past, in which we've had motions, substitute motions, and both failed. So obviously, people can vote what they think is the right public policy of the city, and if it's unsuccessful, then we'll be back at another time. Any additional comments by members of this council on the underlying motion?
I do.
Councilman DeCiccio, please.
So I want to make sure I understand this clearly. The votes were there to give them a pay raise. Now everybody's going to be getting a cut. Yeah, so it's going to be that much of a flip. Really? Is that really going to happen here? Where it went from treating them fairly to now voting. Okay. I'm going to be a no vote on this one. Go ahead and vote.
Okay.
And love this job.
Roll call.
It's so exciting.
DeCiccio.
No.
Man.
Gallego.
Yes.
Gates.
No.
Nowakowski.
No.
Pastor.
Yes.
Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Waring.
Absolutely not.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so the motion passes on a 5-4 vote. There be no other business for the council. We're going to adjourn the meeting.